Welcome back to XTraw AI, your monthly pulse on everything shaping the world of artificial intelligence. It's August 2025, and this month was packed with breakthroughs. OpenAI dropped GPT-5. Japan announced its Zeta-scale FugakuNEXT supercomputer. Google committed billions more into cloud and AI infrastructure. And governance debates heated up worldwide. In this episode, we'll break it all down into our four signature buckets: infrastructure and investments, innovations and product launches, integration in industry and services, and ethics and policy. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back, folks. I think today we are in full strength, doing all the session together. Welcome back to our monthly AI Global News Roundup. Welcome back, Lucas. Welcome back, Manjeet and Sesh.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love this monthly series. Always look forward to it.
Yeah, maybe I think we will get back to our regular. Before getting into our bucketed category, is there any key insights that you have from each of you? I think very personal or professional that you want to talk about before we getting into our four categories. Maybe you can start with Manjeet.
Yeah, I think the one little very top of my mind is it's more around kind of hiring and how this interviewing is has been evolved or evolving, I would say. So I'm interviewing a couple of PMs, right, for a PM role. And so this idea of like, hey, should I ask those candidates to do vibe coding during the interview? And what type of problem, because in that like 40 minutes conversation, I want to check their product sense. I want to check their kind of AI literacy and understanding and how comfortable they are. Because I think we are more moving into this space where, hey, it's not about writing a 20, 30, 40 page PRD. Now we have tool at our disposal. Can we build out and communicate the idea why we are doing this, what problem we are solving, and a little bit of make it more visual to bring alignment across engineering, data science, and everybody else very, very quickly. So I think that's something top of mind. And I tried that today. It was interesting to observe the candidate.
Good. Awesome. Any insights from you, Lucas, the last 1 month? I know a lot of things are going on in your mind.
I cannot help myself, but I have to comment on the vibe coding for PMs, right? Because that's also a topic for me. And I feel like it's maybe not important at this point whether you're good at it or not. But if you're not curious about creating the most tangible artifacts for de-risking, if you don't want to push the boundaries of what you can do as a PM, if you're not intensely curious and playing along or playing with these technologies, I have a big problem, right? Because I do believe that the biggest value creation is always where it feels like hard, where you don't know how it will pan out. And vibe coding, I'm not saying it's the right thing to create the value for the business automatically, and we should all do it. But as a PM, understanding the new tools and having new capabilities, you should be very excited about it and engaged. That's my personal take, but luckily I don't hire for everyone, right? Just for my organization. Now, in terms of the things that I find curious or interesting this month is really for the first time, I feel like we're hearing like a little bit of, is the bubble going to burst? Like people are talking like, is it overhyped? Is the bubble though finally popping or whatever? And I will refrain from saying anything at this point. I do believe that this is another interesting indication, and I kind of like the conversation, even if it's very clickbaity.
And over to you, Sesh. I think what was going on in your mind, in your thoughts this
Yeah,
morning?
I think this is very interesting. And I think we spoke a little bit about this towards the end of our last July podcast as well, on what the next interviews would be. As
Right.
in, it's probably going to be a model given to the user and then ask them to say, what is the coolest app you're going to build with it, or something like that, right? So I think uh, we earlier this month also there was an announcement that Google is going to allow um, candidates to use virtual um, vibe coding tools as well as conversation AI kind of tools during the interview process. I don't know what extent that they going to incorporate, but I think they made a decision that they're going to incorporate it, and also made a decision that they're going to have one in-person meeting at least, right? So that's when things come together. Um, so that's basically to carry on Manjeet's point. Right. The other thing also, which is pretty interesting, um, is the is the part where things blur between what you are doing versus what your AI agent is going to do, in the sense that when you're going to be in this mode where most of the web browsing is going to be done by um, agents, which is what I think the old CEO of Twitter, Parag Agrawal, I guess he's starting a new company which talks about reinventing the internet, where
Yeah.
most of the browsing is going to be done by agents.
Right.
And then the question is, uh, where the ethical boundaries lie in that case, right? Where there are certain things illegal as a person to do, versus when your agent is spawning that and then doing that, then what guardrails can you, as a very naive user of internet, can set, and then not get hijacked, right? That's a very interesting question. I'm guessing that when when somebody's talking about reinventing internet, these kind of boundaries will take care of it. It's almost like a spam takeover um, in the current era, but more in the agentic era, right? So that's something which was interesting when I saw the interview of Parag when he was talking about his new startup. So
Yeah. I forgot the name of the company. I think something he was talking about. I think, yeah,
yeah,
we'll look it up later. Not a
yeah,
problem.
exactly. But
Yeah.
it all was much needed, and also sets some new conversations going on what guardrails and how it's going to help.
Let's get into, I think, great insights from all of you. I think let's get into our regular categories, starting with AI infrastructure investments, the innovations and product launches, and also the ecosystem integrations, and also the ethics and policy. So, which category you want to start with, Lucas? I know you have a hard cut off today for our conversation.
Well, I think traditionally we have always started with infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the category because there are fundamentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about, is the AI bubble bursting? And I think one way of getting to some sort of opinion is to look at the past, right?
Yeah.
And I came across a number, and I'm not sure exactly where I saw it, but it pointed out that during when the railroads were built, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge infrastructure investment. Somebody had the genius idea of looking at the numbers and
Mm-hmm.
translating them into percentages of GDP invested in that technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that back when the railroad barons were carving up America with their tracks, the investment per annum was as high as 6% of GDP.
Yeah.
And the number is interesting because we are like bamboozled by the numbers of AI and data centers and everybody is feeling like everybody's losing their minds and this is unsustainable and crazy. And so you want to guess? Do you think it's higher or lower than 6% of GDP? What we're currently investing than compared to the railroad hype?
That's a good question.
So it's like the percent of US GDP. That's
Yes. So the investment. So roughly, we know that we're currently at the clip of $1 billion per day in data center investment this year, right?
Right.
And the question is, if you tally that up and say like, hey, GDP in the US, is that higher or lower than what they invested in during the railroad times?
Maybe still
It's just
less.
like
I think, yeah, my guess is more because it's doing the rough math, right? Because you're right, it's billion a day because just between hyperscaler, I was looking at a number yesterday, they spend 88 billion in one quarter. Okay, so
yeah.
that's just within them. And of course, there are many other, so it's definitely more than a billion. Hyperscaler plus everybody else. And then, of course, the another leading indicator I see is NVIDIA, right? Because they're leading the pack. They almost had kind of a $50 billion quarter, like 40, close to 40.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So I think it's more, I would say.
Yeah, good. We have one
crossed that.
person more, one lower. I will resolve it. It's less than half. So it's below 3%.
Right.
And I was not really aware of the numbers. I certainly thought it was higher. And then now, to me, that was like an interesting tidbit of information that calibrates like my expectation, right? If you think as railroad as an enabling technology that was important to settle the West, to really like in a way make also the industrialization and the cost of goods moving around as low as it currently is in the US and really setting the bedrock and creating the foundations for the industrialization, the success of a nation, like, and then comparing it to general intelligence, I'm less bamboozled by the numbers, even though they're still like crazy. So in a way, when we talk about infrastructure, every month we had like one crazy number, and this month I'm like, this is an interesting way how to calibrate my thinking.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think I have two quick kind of thoughts and observations. So when let's say look across like at the last 3 months, we've been talking about infra bucket. There is no surprise there, at least the lens I'm looking at. There's a consistent growth, there's a consistent investment from these big players, and then right, so it's going up, up, and up. And if this trend continue, by end of this year, we will probably touch what railroad was kind of spending or like percentage wise. But the other, like if you think about some of the counter reports and then right what MIT produced and few others, and like, hey, how much depth we have in those signals, and then will they little bit of play the counterbalancing, and then like maybe instead of like 30-40% growth every quarter, it'll be slow. So that's kind of two things I'm looking at personally.
Okay. What do you say, Shetik? What are you looking at in this category, in this bucket?
From an infrastructure investment point of view, I mean, yes, the question about the ROI that MIT report brings up is one thing that I think everybody's talking about, and also earlier in the month, I think Sam Altman raised a question about on the same topic, more or less, right? So, but just more on a I think like positive note, I guess, in the sense like I'm pretty excited about certain things that were announced this week by NVIDIA. As in they launched their, the Blackwell GPUs. In the sense, they have a good full stack solution, and there's widespread adoption by all of the partners like Dell, HP, all the leading data center solution providers are adopting. So in that sense, I think it's almost like going back to the railroads, right? It becomes the shovels for the AI era, and they are really dominating with the full stack solution from hardware to software in the AI ecosystem. And what also was exciting for me was they unveiled this Jetson Thor as well, which is more of a edge solution. Although from an offering perspective, it's not a big revenue contributor, but it's more of what is the raw compute being available at the edge and in an all-in-one system, the GPU, CPU, memory, all in a single chip. It makes it interesting for a lot of the citizen developers to start experimenting, right? So it's also shifts from just data center driven AI solutions to more experimental robotics that is deployable. So that I feel those two announcements from infrastructure and the full stack offering that NVIDIA announced, it's pretty exciting. I know Jetson Thor was about $250 when they launched it earlier as a beta, but I haven't checked the new pricing, but feel excited. I hope if it falls a little bit, I might buy one and try some things.
Right, right. And also, I believe, I think Jensen Huang, I think he projects multi-trillion dollar AI investments, right? I think in infrastructure by the end of 2030. He says that we are just about starting. I think at that rate, I think maybe that is the reason. I think Lucas was saying that our the percentage of this GDP is still less than 6% because of the amount of what is gonna trigger. So staying on that, I think,
because it's going to be more than enable us, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's continue further. I believe let's get into the next category. I know there's a lot of new things going on in this product launches and innovation category. So Lucas, do you want to start with that category? I know you were
Sure.
mentioning briefly about that.
I mean, that's my favorite category. So anything that's in there, I will be happy to comment. I think from my personal soapbox, things that I'm interested in is, well, there was the launch of GPT-5, but that's not for me the main event here to talk about, because I think everybody who listens to this already knows about it, and I would say with almost certainty has tried it out for themselves. What I find interesting is, in a way, that they had to, and I mean OpenAI, had to revert back to offering options like GPT-4o to their Pro and Plus users. Now, if you take a step back, when did that ever happen that somebody released something that was technically better, like objectively better? Every benchmark, there's no question that GPT-5 is better in terms of what it can do than GPT-4. Yet people demanded that the old technology needs to come back. So that to me shows very clearly that when we talk about AI and we're looking at how intelligent it is, and I mean, benchmarks are not the perfect gauge for that anyway, right? But what I'm trying to say is we're very focused on what it can do, how smart it is, when to me, it's very clear that the more interesting part will be how it relates, connects, and establishes rapport with the users. So what I'm trying to get across is that this technology is the first technology that can create industrialized empathy. You can relate to it. It has some sort of a personality. You're like, I like how it answers me. It knows me. I like the tonality of this version. And I don't like the model over there. I like this one, right? That's not how you would think of AI working out. Let's say if we talked about it intellectually 10 years ago, right? You would say hey, I want the smartest model. That's the only thing I want.
Right.
And so I think what I want to say is where the most interesting things will happen maybe in the next couple of years is not only the intelligence, but the emotional space, because this technology can also work on the emotional space. And I think it's underappreciated that this is so big and so important. And I think with the launch of GPT-5 and the rollback, we see that.
Right. I like the way you put it, the industrial empathy. I think that's interesting. I think, I echo with your thoughts. Coming to you, Manjit, what do you think as some of these new product launches or innovations happening or happen in this month?
Yeah, I think the lot more models, I would say, a lot more open source models now, because
Right.
XAI and even OpenAI and all like, hey, we also want to jump onto this bandwagon of both versions. And then uh, the good thing is they are releasing smaller version of open source model, which means you can take them and move into kind of a lower form factors, right? Um, kind of these edge devices, and that's kind of the one lens. And then long-term ecosystem play for them is okay, you start in there, but then ultimately you come to the bigger ones, and then so here's my quick experience thinking about, let's say the GPT-5, because no matter what, they OpenAI still lead the pack when it comes down to a model that can do many things better. And that's what literally they try to solve for it. One unified, where they combine reasoning, they combine kind of the all the more horizontal use cases, and then they're making a big push on coding. And I think this all was a lot in one release, and that's where we everybody's now have like 5 tabs, and then they want flexibility. I would say empathy is there, but what at least a couple of people I was talking, they're like, no, I want flexibility. I want to use for this use case, I want to use this model because that's where all my, my prompt works nicely. And then whatever, it understands me and taste, right? Because it has my taste because I was chatting with it for 6 months, and now, all of a sudden that some of those memories lost into this new one. And I think they had struggle in the routing, because see, if the routing really works in this, the way that launching GPT-5 and they can route to the underlying model, that's, I think, was buggy and was not. Now, I missed 4.0. Now, in last 1 week, I'm not missing it anymore. I'm back to kind of just, I don't change model, GPT 5.0, and then, but anyway, I think the part that I continue to think about and then is that as these model players are moving up to the stack, this definition of moat is changing and evolving, and then right, so right, and there has been a lot of waves of like, the first wave of moat was, hey, if you can have a good wrapper, you're fine, and there's good businesses built around that. Couple of companies are successful sticky product. Then we had like, okay, let's take a lot more verticalization approach, right? More think about a role like, hey, if I'm solving for software development, right? And cursors of the world, and then agent. That's where I've been spending my 1 year. Is like, okay, but now as these guys keeps coming up and up with the higher intelligence, my take now is see, the AI has a product problem. AI don't have a model problem, and what I mean by that is that even if model stays where they are, I think we can still build very usable product that solves problems, real problems, and then degree of that I think the adoption and it will vary by, for some role it will be a lot more, for some industries it will be a lot more, for others. And so I think that's kind of the, if I like, okay, if I want to do my own startup, where I will play, because one tweet from Sam Altman can wipe out many startups. I think that's the right. So it's interesting to see how this space will play out. But when I think about innovation, I think agents, and then what you're talking about there is agents are here to stay. We any signal that I look into, let's say in our agent force ecosystem and others, is like, some of those problems are getting solved. Hey, if you configure them right, they are able to do those tasks and jobs and other ones. As a result of that, I'll finish with one interesting observation is. And I think you were mentioning, Sesh, about like the identity of the agent, and then this whole security paradigm. So far, we have a lot of products that help identify humans, right? Or if I'm logging in, my authentication, Okta does it, or Zscaler, and if you then what I said, okay, let me look at all the companies that are in this bucket, all the security companies. All of them are doing really well, at least from their Mars stock standpoint. Everybody's 50% up, 70% up. If you look at CrowdStrike, Cloudflare, Palo Alto Network, but at the same time, there's a kind of a tale of two markets. The SaaS and workflow companies, they are heavily under pressure, down by 20-30% across the board. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's that, and maybe a little bit I'm jumping into maybe the security and governance bucket. But it's interesting to see that these model evolve, and then where's the moat is, and then this kind of security, governance, and guardrails and all that has still, I think, a lot of problem to be solved for all these technology to adopt, both at the individual level, like as a consumer, but more importantly for the enterprises.
Great, great. I think, yeah, over to you, Sesh. I think what are your observations in this category, the product launches and innovations?
I think we talked enough about the models and the new waves, and even NVIDIA launched a new model. They slipped in kind of a model silently, which is comparable to the what's called the thinking model that we hear from the Groks and the GPT-5s of the world, right? I from an innovation standpoint, two micro innovations I kind of tried out, so that's why I'm mentioning it. This is basically the I mean, we are always short of designers in our company, right? In every company. So I was waiting on a designer to come around and build something, then it was not happening. So I just defined a PRD with the ChatGPT and Claude, and then uploaded it to Lovable, and then uploaded a video of our existing UX tools. And then the outcome was actually a much more rethought workflow of the UX, to the point that the first reaction of the designer head was like, "This is not approved by Salesforce," right? So I'm saying like the outcome of this Lovable's UX was actually even, sorry to say, it was better than what was actually defined as a workflow, right? So that was pretty interesting. What was, I mean, of course, Lovable has been around for a while, but what was interesting recently was I was also trying to tweak some parts of it because I had uploaded a video to generate the UX. So I had to tweak some parts of it. And then I stumbled upon what Google recently launched this month, I think, a Nano Banana editing tool. It's more like an image editing tool that is ultra targeted image editing. So I had to tweak some parts of it without upsetting the entire workflow that was already generated. That was pretty good, actually. It was like a Photoshop level finesse from UI, from AI, from AI editing position perspective, with minimal like collateral changes, which is what I wanted to do because it's very hard to edit. It actually, I don't know why Google calls it Nano Banana, which was kind of a hard tongue twister for me, but it was very nice to do like a surgical edit on a single object and then keep the larger structure along the way. I thought that such things existed a long time back, but it so happened that they launched it just this month. It was just in time for me to kind of tinker around another UX. So that was pretty interesting from a product launch perspective. So I don't know if anyone of you have tried that, but it was pretty useful.
I heard a lot about it, but I didn't get the chance to try. And thanks for bringing that up.
It's amazing, Raghu. You just ask it to do like, hey, put me this and that, and it'll just basically do that. So it's I think it's next level. And to me, after Notebook LM, this is the second, I would say, the kind of a viral product from Google. Of course, the Gemini models are generally very good now.
Right.
But what's
And it also ties into your story about daisy chaining models, right? Like it's here I'm talking about a UX generated by Lovable, and then I'm kind of daisy chaining with a Nano Banana AI generated authoring tool, kind of putting together to eventually deliver something which I really wanted. I mean, closer to what I wanted.
Right.
Any thoughts from you, Lucas, before we jump into the other bucket?
I again will talk about in a way in this theme. I decided I'm now going with a theme, right, of the bubble and everything. And I read that a lot of people were in a way taking the releases that came out this month as indication that everything is slowing down. And if you had just transported those models like a couple of months, like half a year back, I think you would say exactly the opposite, right? I think we have been so accustomed to what like crazy new stuff comes out that even when amazing new releases hit our like reality, we're like meh at this point, right? So I think that's my take, that there is some hedonic adaptation to the craziness, even as it exponentially surges up.
That's
So
very true. It's very true. I mean, I remember whenever we got some new product, like a Google Cast, for example, right? A couple of 2 years back, I think we all spent weeks together on just one particular product or months together, just because how novel it was. Now you're changing by the week.
Yeah, no, novelty shelf life is has reduced a lot in the AI space. So uh, amazing.
So yeah, so let's get into the next category. I think Lucas, I know you had to leave soon, so do you want to bring up your thoughts on the other two bucketed categories,
Okay,
integration
sure.
and the ethics?
So in terms of integration, I read that Epic, the biggest electronic health records provider in the US, is seriously rolling out AI initiatives and has also opened up strategic initiatives to build upon it, right? And I'm not an expert in the healthcare space, but for me, I couldn't be more excited about this industry finally finding its footing with innovation. And I feel like what has been arrested development for decades turning around. I mean, maybe I'm overly critical, but honestly, we should be. Like, if there is one industry that you really want to push the envelope and be innovative, it should be the healthcare sector. And hearing that now finally things are starting to move is maybe the best news that I read, even if it was in a way like a corporate like update on things, right? I just hope that through AI this industry will get more competitive, more innovative, and more things will move. And I do believe that the ability to connect different silos of information and understanding on a semantic level is specifically like conducive to new innovation. It's not even like crazy innovation, just giving the people who help other people, whether it's doctors, nurses, or anybody else in the field, just the tools they need to be better at their job and help saving lives. And that really truly makes me excited.
Anything else you want to add in the other category, in the
Oh,
ethics?
yeah, sure. Ethics. There was one thing that, in a way, was an announcement that OpenAI and Anthropic have an agreement that they will collaborate even as they're frenemies, right? And literally, the founders and most of the senior staff at Anthropic is ex-OpenAI, that they will work together with in terms of safety evals, right? And I think if you're cynical, you will say like, oh, it's clear they're doing it just to have enough momentum for regulatory capture or whatever, like there's many ways of being like cynical about it. But I think that's fantastic, right? We do want like the biggest frontier labs in when it comes to safety to have standards that they agree upon and work together, right? But really what I took away from it is that's kind of miraculous, like how different models all work with each other. Like if you think about it, you can take a prompt and you can put it in another model and it works. We can literally create an AI solution and like in terms of exchanging a model compared to any other cloud technology, it's probably the easiest thing you would ever do, right? Talk to someone who tried to re-platform from AWS to I don't know, like Azure or GCP or whatever, right? It's insanely easy. And I was wondering, like, if that will end. Right now, all the models essentially are the same, right? You can use the same prompts. And I think we will see probably a time where, and that comes back to the other topic that always like I'm interested in, the memory, the ability to create this industrialized empathy, to connect with people. It won't be the same. And I was thinking to myself, in 3 years from now, will we be able to prompt models and just exchange the prompt between models? And right now, if anybody wants to bet, I would say we won't be able, even if that's now a commonplace. But I don't yet have data on this intuition. It's just like a curious thought that struck me.
You mean to say that it's not going to be that easily
Exactly.
accessible to jump between different models?
Exactly. I think that they will diverge. Yes.
Interesting. I'm pretty sure. I think they have to diverge, I believe. Any thoughts from you? I think Manjit.
Yeah, no, I think see, ultimately we have to converse. Otherwise, see this whole interoperability and this idea of orchestrating these things and platform agnostic. And so let me a little bit of Lucas, 2, 3 things you said, and I'll build kind of 2 thoughts on there. So one is, I think he mentioned about the healthcare, an epic example. So what I've seen in specifically in the healthcare industry, there is always like, okay, who are the first movers, right? Wait for that. But once you have 1 or 2 success stories, things move very fast. So I think I've seen that when I worked across kind of the industry vertical product adoption, like whether it was cloud or, they are slow, slow, slow. But once you have 1 or 2, those CIOs talk to each other and it's like, hey, no, we need it now. So because for obvious reason, right? The risk level and those are high, and then right security considerations, and then the second part I think coming into is I think the interesting this I think it falls into the ethics one, right? We have seen, if you're training a model, you can access the data from wherever you want. And this has been going on, right? Okay, who is right, what is allowed, what is not allowed. But now there is an interesting situation where if you search anything on Perplexity, for example, and Perplexity Comet browser, and then so they have now agentic kind of search behind the scene. It can go and take action into the other websites, search data, and then so Cloudflare, for example, sitting in the middle, the Cloudflare is saying, "Oh, these are not the human request; these are agent requests," and then they are saying they are malware or like, right? So there was kind of interesting back and forth, and then Perplexity came back and is like, "No, I mean, you guys, your algorithm sucks or whatever, right? These are genuinely authenticated sessions."
Yeah.
Let's say if I'm saying, hey, go and do shopping on behalf of me, then it is taking my permission. And now this agent is same as it's my agent.
Right.
So I think this interesting is like, okay, who has the authority to kind of, stamp and tell that this is the really the authenticated agent from Raghu or from says you, versus it could be like all the rogue agent that can come and then. So I think that both parties are right in a way. But at the same time, this opens up this debate like okay, there's a lack of standard. We do need that, some sort of identity, the solutions, and then who is going to build that. So there's an opportunity, there's a kind of problem space, and then coming back to I think this kind of the prompt challenge that Gus was mentioning, right? And what I am observing firsthand is, let's say if I'm playing with Cursor, okay, or I'm playing with Claude,
right?
All of them, they have created their own, let's say Claude.md file, and it's the same like if you're looking into a code repository, you have your README file, right? README.md. So README.md is for humans.
Yeah.
But then what's the agent equivalent? Like if agent comes and access all the code, like what are the instructions for the agent? Hey, do this, don't do this. And then, so then everybody's adding their own kind of MD file. And I was like, okay, well, where's the standard? That's why I think the core of the problem is like, okay, why some of these same prompts and those things, they vary and like you struggle with. is because there's kind of this lack of those. And then I saw this 3, 4 companies came together. I think Google and then a few other. They said like, hey, let's call it agent.md. So I think I see. That's why the comment I made was, see, ultimately will have to converge.
Yeah.
And maybe not one thing, but at least 1, 2, or 3, not like 20 things. Otherwise, it'll be pretty messy situation, and then not good for the end user, right? In this case.
Right. Generally, like the standards, like we have, whether it is in the operating system world as well, right? I think we have 2 to 3 different operating systems which are widely being used. The same way, I think it might evolve in that kind of a scenario.
Yeah, there's four quickly, right? So the one is identity. How do you authentication, and then right. So basically, right, what's the Okta equivalent solution for agents that works really, really well, right? The second one is once you are, and I'm thinking it more of a journey, right? Let's say if I'm interacting and I'm using so first is my kind of authenticated.
Yeah.
The second challenge is when those agents are executing, are they doing the right thing? They're taking the right path, and so that's kind of another kind of the problem. The third is for agents to do the right job, they're coming down to like robot.txt or an MD, like what they're allowed to do when they are going and accessing a website or accessing a code repository and kind of so on and so forth. So my mental model is kind of, if you look across the stack back and forth, then there's a bunch of gaps. And of course, there's interoperability. We talked about MCPs and A2As of the world, these agent talk. And so at least these are the four problem areas I'm tracking.
Beautiful, beautiful. What do you say, I think, what are your thoughts on these 2 bucketed categories?
Just continuing on what Manjeet and Lucas were also saying, right? So I think this is what we started off as top of mind in the beginning of the call, where when I am going to have an agentic browser which is spawning off, which is the example of Perplexity that Manjeet was mentioning, but it could be it could be the offshoot of what the Parag Agarwal is starting, right? The company's name is Unveiled. So then you have to solve for these things where as you say, authentication, authorization, as well as the whole notion of bearer token flowing through in a daisy chained agentic system is not really a paradigm that exists, and that kind of will be a natural evolution. But at the same time, when I was actually having a conversation with one of my friends, right now we have quickly evolved to this, MCP and A2A paradigm, which is great because so early in the agentic world, we have already arriving on a standard. And I was mentioning this to him, right? And my friend made a very good observation, which could be true, not true, right? He was saying that you quickly arrived at a interop solution because none of them have figured out a monetization model for agentic system. The day they know that there is a monetization model, they will start building their own, wall gardens, and then interoperability die before it will take a while, and then again interoperability. So it's more like that's what he was saying, which is a good observation from a history perspective. We'll have to wait to see if really that's going to be the case in the case of in this world, right? It looks like Manjeet, you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would say that what I've seen in the enterprise space in the last 10 years, if you try to restrict and close down your system, customers are not going to like that.
Right.
And there's obvious reason, because if you see data as a moat, so any companies that have data, they will be a little bit of try to put restrictions. So only you can access these many records, and then and I've seen it like one quick example I give is LinkedIn, for example.
Right.
LinkedIn says, okay, they have all the professional networks data, and then people were building a lot of, the extracting it out, and then they said, nope, you can't do it in kind of one session. And people build up all these tiny scrap, the scrapers, and then, so I think one is people will find workaround if you try to kind of from that standpoint.
Mhm.
So what ended up happening is more towards standardization and being open to integrate with other systems. Otherwise, I think, yeah, the CIOs these days is like, oh, if you don't have APIs, no matter if you are state-of-the-art solution, you will probably lose out in against somebody else who has the open APIs.
Right, right. I think well said. Yep. Great. I think we covered a lot of ground in this monthly session. Any closing takeaways, or what are you looking forward for the next month? Manjeet, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think there's two things. One is there's multi-agent, multi-model. I think that's with voice capability. So that's something I think an important one. I'm very bullish about the impact voice agents are going to have, right? Both from the business standpoint and also as an end user. Also, some of these, I think the wait time will reduce if they are kind of deployed. Yeah, I think those are, I would say, my next month priorities to think more deeply. And then I've been reading about, I think there's reinforcement learning and then different techniques because how these agents can kind of learn. Uh, and again, going back to the one point I was making, because if this model players comes up, and so anybody who has the real reinforcement, kind of the self-learning loop with the feedback data, there, I think those solutions will do well because that's kind of the where my head is.
Right, right. Any closing takeaways, and what are you looking forward, Sesh?
Couple of things. One thing I observed is in our company, I'm sure it's case in other places also, is they've been having extensive training on vibe coding tools. There has been external vendors like Cursor and all coming and doing webinars for, I think it's for developers, but I plan to catch the recording and see. The other thing which I wanted to tool around this wrong weekend was it is also a product launch this month, I think. Uh, Google upgraded their Notebook LM with from a simple summarizer, which is what everybody very popular for research and tutoring companion. Now they've integrated their Google Collaboratory or collab that they talk about, right? It's collab, right? Which is interesting. So now you have a single workspace for both notes, explanation, and also coding, and then AI authoring with with data science agent and stuff like that. So I want to get my hands get a little hands-on on that and see what can I do as a former engineer, but a while back now, more like an PM, to see what I can build there, right? So that's something. There are so much data outside. Like we talked about EHR, or electronic health records. There are so many diagnoses that can be done with just pulling these things together, and hopefully something like a Google Colab and Notebook LM can help me publish a paper quickly, right? Let's see what can come out of it. So it'll be interesting.
Right. I think I'm really excited. I think, yeah, it's a lot unfolding for the month of September. I think, Manjit, I'll not leave you without giving you a fitness tip, as always.
Yeah, I have a very, very practical recent one that I was facing, and I'm like, okay, what should I do about it? I'm spending a lot of time on screen these days. Of course, work plus, tinkering and trying out, and I'm like, my eyes are getting strained. By 2, 3 p.m., I was kind of feeling okay, and I was like, okay, let me wash with water, and then nothing was helping. But one thing that helped is now what I do is I catch myself like first is like whenever I'm finished one meeting, I make sure I look away for 20 seconds. I have to look as far as when I'm working from home, I have a tree out of my window. I look for tree and mountain. When I'm in the room or like a conference room, you make sure look in a corner and like stare at it and like so that really decompresses. And so I think that's my rule is 20 minutes of work and 20 seconds of far away, change the direction so you're not like only this way. So try it out if anybody feeling the eye strain. I think this should help you.
Beautiful. And Sesh, any learning tip from you? I think you keep doing a lot of things, a lot of new learnings that's happening from your end.
Well, learning tip, I guess for me, it was a good experience when I tooled around with, both lovable and nano banana stuff. So I would like to explore a little bit more on that. Maybe try a windsurf or a cursor to see how they are. So that's what I'm thinking. And as we were just talking about it, there's so many things coming up. Notebook LM and Collab is another one which I want to try out. I guess it's already packing our long weekend. I think given Manjit's fitness thing, Raghu, we should also bring him in on our hikes.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Great. I think great conversation, guys. I think looking forward to the next month.
That wraps up the AI highlights for August 2025. From record-shattering infrastructure projects and frontier model launches to industry adoption and evolving policy landscapes, the AI story keeps accelerating across every corner of the globe. Stay tuned next month for another deep dive into the forces shaping our AI-driven future. This is XTraw AI. Thanks for listening, and remember, the future is not just coming, it's already here. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies.